Welcome back, everybody. I'm finally getting back to some C4 content after a long period of not really touching the car since the paint job and cutting and buffing it. I was probably pretty much burnt out from doing all that. I took a little bit of break. I've been driving it here and there, but now that it's colder, it's winter time, I want to get caught up with some projects. So a couple little things that I wanted to do was redo all the bushings on the front suspension. So I did bag the car maybe 2 years ago, and I didn't really touch any of that stuff. My main focus was to make all the brackets and make sure I had all that stuff set up correctly instead of just, doing it the correct way and replacing everything while I had it out of the car, because that makes too much sense. But now I figured I wanted to make a separate video doing that anyway. So this is that video. So ball joints on the car are all the original ball joints. Although they don't have play, I figured I'm gonna have everything out, I might as well just replace those. And the bushings are the original rubber bushings from 1985, still in the car. Yes, I know, it's sad. So the rear stuff I did a while back, but the front stuff has just pretty much been just kind of slowly falling apart. And when you look at it, everything's cracked and it looks like garbage. So I figured I would probably take the time now and take this stuff all apart, clean it up nice, and put all new polyurethane bushings and ball joints in. So that's the first task of today, is to get everything disassembled. But before we get to that, and before we get this thing out of hibernation up on jack stands, let me show you what I got. So I ordered polyurethane bushings here. I believe I got this off of Amazon. I will leave all the links down below. And this is pretty much all the control arm bushings, the two lower bushings, and then the two ones up at the top. They come in either red or black. I got red because it matches. So this is pretty much everything you need to do that here, all that kind of stuff. So that, and then I ordered ball joints, uppers and lowers, and I just opened this box now. I ordered this stuff probably several months ago, and I'm just opening it now, and I'm realizing that I have 3 boxes here instead of essentially would be 4. So I'm missing a upper ball joint, and I think I didn't click the cart right, or the amount in the cart right, and they just sent me the one, but it's too late now, so I gotta order another one of the upper ball joints, but I'll get that and ordered up as soon as possible. And then this is the lower ball joint here. This is a press-in style ball joint, so you will need a press for the lower ball joint on the lower control arm. So that's one thing you definitely need to do. The top one actually bolts in. So from the factory, it's riveted in, and you gotta kind of like cut the heads off or drill those out and kind of knock the rivets out, which isn't the end of the world. It's kind of like a GM thing. So I have currently one of those, but we'll get the second one. So I have that too here. So 4 ball joints and then a bunch of bushings. So we're gonna get this thing jacked up, take everything apart, get everything cleaned up, get this old bushings out, and get this thing nice and tight and back on the road.
This week's video is brought to you by LCOBMW. Shop our site for C4 performance parts, merchandise, and much more. Visit the link in the description or visit LCOBMW.com.
So far off to a good start. Might be the Walmart battery. It's probably the Walmart battery. Okay, I got the car all jacked up, so we're gonna just look at everything. I'm gonna show you exactly what I'm gonna be taking off here and kind of what you need to look for. So just a quick overview real quick of what we're gonna get into. So this is the upper control arm, obviously. We're gonna be taking all these bolts here, right? And then the most important thing is to, as you're loosening those bolts, to pull out each shim pack. You can tape them or put them in a bag and label them, like left front, front, and then for these two, left front, rear, or something like that, because you can put these right back and not have to really align the car. So that's really important. So just be very careful when you're taking these off that they stay exactly where they're supposed to go. So besides that, we're gonna take the caliper off. There's gonna be 2 bolts in the back there. I'm going to take the rotor off, that'll just slide off. I'm going to unhook the tie rod here, so you got to take out those cotter pins, and same thing, lower ball joint, and then this upper ball joint, cotter pin and bolt like that, and then there's 2 bolts, one there and one there. Now this may look a little odd because it's air ride, so normally you'll have your leaf spring that goes there. So I have my air spring down there, and then my sway bar here, that's gonna get unbolted from the control arm, but I'll leave it on here, and then I'll just unbolt the shock from down there. So I'm gonna first start by taking this off, and probably start with the lower control arm. So I got a 13/16 on a breaker bar for the brake caliper bolts, and I got some wire or some rope or something that you wanna hang the caliper up just so it's not hanging on the brake hose. Okay, so I got my caliper hanging up, and now I'm gonna just turn this. I got the wheel unlocked with the key, so I can move this in and out. So I'm gonna pull this like this. And now I'm gonna unhook the tie rod here. So it's got a cotter pin, some side cutters here. And this is an 18mm nut on there. Okay, so there's several ways to take this out of here with all the ball joint and the knuckle, that part. So, you know, you can use like a pickle fork or, you know, like a gear puller to push that out. I like to enjoy this. Now, a lot of you are gonna cringe, but it works. One good smack right on there, it'll pop right out. Comes right out. So now I can move this all the way out of the way here, and I can get to this cotter pin and this cotter pin. I am gonna take the lower control arm off first. So pop this cotter pin out here. So we'll get this here. This is 13/16. Okay, now I'm going to remove the sway bar link here. Now this is obviously not factory, this is one of ours. So if you like these, hop on over to the site there. It's a little shameless promotion. Take this off here. And then for my shock mount here, there's just a 19mm bolt underneath. Okay, now I'm gonna go to these back bolts here. So the bolt runs in like this, and the head is 15mm, and then the nut that's on the back side is 18mm. So I have an open end wrench on this side, and then I got a ratchet on this side. And it's the same thing for that one too. So we'll get those out now. So now that the back bolts are out, I'm just going to pull this whole assembly forward. Angle this. Hang it down. And now that it's hanging on this ball joint, I'm going to give it a smack and then release that from there. Okay, so lower control arm is out, and now we're going to move on, and I'm going to unbolt the upper control arm here. I'm going to take that castle nut off, and then I can just get this completely out of the way and then work on getting that. So I have an open end wrench on this 18mm nut here for this upper control arm. So you can either lift this control arm up and get a socket on there with the breaker bar if you want. I'm gonna just use the open end wrench and then another one like this and put it up in here like that. And then that should be enough to break it free. And I'm just gonna loosen these so the shims don't fall out. So just a little bit and then check the shims. All right, here's my first shim packs here. Just gonna put these in this little bag. those. Here's the rear ones here. Now I'm just gonna finish loosening these nuts here and then we'll pull this off. So there's the nut and then there's this. There's one on the inside here and the outside. Or this is the outside and then there's one on the inside of the control arm. So just make sure you keep those and put those aside. So now that I have this thing loose and ready to pull off, obviously you can see you can't pull it off because of the shock tower. So there's this black piece in here with these 10 millimeters here. So we're gonna take all those out now. Pull that piece out of the way. There's one right down here. And then there's some on the inside here, which I'll show you. Right down there. Kind of hard to tell, but there's two down there. And I think there's maybe one more down here, but let me just pull this stuff out of the way and we'll get to that. Here's a better look at that inside panel here. There is 3 10 millimeter bolts here, and then there is 2 back here. And this gets kind of stuck down in there and sometimes gets caught on this brace here. So once you pull the bolts out, you can kind of slide it because it slides underneath there. And then I just unhooked the harness from here and just kind of move the harness and stuff out of the way and slid this straight up. And now we can grab this, pull it out, push these bolts back. Like that. There. So I have this brace in here that goes from the front frame there to there. The bolt goes through, but it's the same thing if you don't have that. And then we're just going to lift it up and over there, and now that's out. So everything was going smoothly here. So this far back bolt there can get pushed forward to get clearance or pushed in towards the engine, while this one over here is actually hitting that belt tensioner down in there. So I can't push that in. I thought maybe I could unbolt my shock here and that would give me the clearance if I could lift this all the way up and slide it off. But down there is hitting the frame, so it looks like my only option here is to take off that tensioner just so I can push that bolt back enough to clear the shock tower there. What I did was I loosened this 10 millimeter bolt here that holds down the bracket for the dryer, and then I just lifted this straight up out of the way, and then I put a breaker bar on the tensioner, took the belt off the AC compressor here, and now I have a 15 millimeter socket on a ratchet there. I'm going to just take that bolt out and then just kind of let the tensioner just kind of hang loose while I push the bolt back. Now with the tensioner out of the way, I pushed it all the way back. And you always have to turn that bolt
to slide past that bracket because it actually hits that when it's turned the other way. So I have it turned and then pushed back, and now I have enough clearance here to pull this bad boy out. So here are the upper and lowers out on the bench here. I just want to show you what the bushings look like. All cracked. Same thing in there. And they're just completely shot at this point. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start drilling out or grinding off the top of these rivets to get these out of here on the upper control arm. So I'm going to work on that now. So I got the upper control arm just thrown up in the vise here. I am going to grind off the heads of all 4 of these rivets here using this with a little cutoff wheel blade on there. And I'm just going to cut them all off to start. You could drill these off too if you like, but this is just a little bit faster. Well, I'm trying my luck with the old here to get this top plate off the ball joint, but unfortunately it's not working, so now I gotta drill each one of these things out and then knock it off. But sometimes you can't get lucky once you grind those flat. You can kind of work this whole thing up, but for me, not today. So I'm gonna just start drilling these things out. Okay, so that was a lot of fun. So I got all 4 of these drilled out. I used an 1/8 inch as like a guide bit. I made like a center punch hole in those. Used an 1/8 inch, I ran it down just as thick as the top of the ball joint, and then I followed up with a 1/4 inch. And now I got myself a little chisel here, or you use your air chisel, and just kind of putting this in here and just smacking it, walking around. And there's that old girl right there. Get rid of that. And now I'm just gonna cut the edges of these rivets out here just so they're flat, just to kind of clean them up a little bit because I got all these drill holes in there. All right, so try using the punch to knock the rivets down through the control arm. Obviously, I'm having no luck today, so I'm going to just continue and drill these all the way, the rest of the way out. So I'll be here for a while doing this. So I was able to drill about halfway down, same thing before, 1/8 inch drill bit, then a 1/4 inch. I went not completely through, but maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of the way down. And then at that point, I took my center punch and then the rivet came right out. So that's the kind of approach here. If they're not moving for you, they're kind of stuck in there pretty good at this point of its age. So drill them as far as you can and then just use the center punch to knock them down. Okay, so I'm pretty much at a standing point right now. So I need to get another ball joint. I'm probably gonna take these over to my boy's shop and use their press over there. I also don't have the socket for the nuts on either side of the upper control arms, which I gotta track down. So I kinda have to stop at this point and get all the little things that I need so I can continue getting the bushings out, get these things cleaned up, and then next video we'll start putting everything back together. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Thanks for watching.